Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. As we move into summer, it's time to start thinking about and tackling those do-it-yourself projects around your home. When it comes to the best building materials and the right tools and the correct advice to help you get jobs done, 100 years of experience behind these guys, no one can compete with A.G. Hines Company. None of these big national chains do what this 100-year-old local company can do for you. Get down and see them. Their buildings they're still practicing the social distancing. All of that stuff's still in effect. They take care of you. You don't last 100 years if you don't care about your clientele, and they do. A.G. Hines Company, they are the best for building materials and tools anywhere around. Okay, want to welcome in the next member of our panel, Mike Strange, longtime sports writer. Thanks for being with us. Before we get into this segment, let me just say, I want sports back. I'm not against this decision. I am for sports to come back. Nobody is chomping at the bit more than I am. That said, it is interesting time-wise in doing this. I don't know how much the science is saying to open the leagues up and do it the way they're doing it. Some people have come out against it. Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley last week made the comment that he thought it was crazy that some of these schools are talking about coming back in June. He says, let the situation guide you as opposed to trying to rush back. That's one voice, but that's an Oklahoma football coach. Let's start this topic with something Stuart Mandel, longtime college football scribe, posted at The Athletic on Friday. I thought it was interesting. Let's take a look at this. There have been encouraging signs, to be sure. Louisville put out a plan Thursday that involves players returning in 3 waves spread out over 6 weeks. Each will quarantine for 12 days, getting tested for COVID-19 halfway through before beginning any workouts. Limited numbers will be allowed in the weight room at the same time. Masks will be worn. It all seems reasonable with Kentucky reopening businesses this week and the city of Louisville's daily number of new cases declining sharply. Okay. But when you see a comment like this one from Missouri's athletic director Jim Sterk, we've had advice that the best way to handle this is to do all these preventative measures like mask, sterilization, and temperature screening. If there are symptoms, then you test. At this point in time, we're not going to be testing everyone as they come in. Sure enough, the SEC recommended protocols released on Friday specify testing only for symptomatic team members, as we talked about in the last segment. Far be it from us to question the SEC's medical experts, but the ability to test asymptomatic people is essential to preventing outbreaks, so players or staffers who test positive can be isolated quickly. Dr. Anthony Fauci has said in numerous interviews that the biggest key to sports returning is the capacity to test every team member regularly. Major League Baseball's return to plan requires testing all individuals multiple times per week, as we also discussed in the last segment. My question is, and I think Mandel is dancing on this topic, do the leagues know what they're doing? I'm in favor of giving it a shot. I see that. Do they know what they're doing, or are they just rolling the dice because they know millions of dollars are at stake?
No, they don't know what they're doing. I don't think anybody can know what they're doing. I think they've spent a lot of money and a lot of resources on making the best educated guess they can. So it's not like they're just totally
nefarious,
shooting in the dark. But are they rolling the dice for money's sake? Isn't that what everybody is doing in the business world, rolling the dice a little bit for money's sake because we have to get the economy going?
We're sitting here today, so yes, in terms of people are rolling the dice a little bit to different extents.
Yeah.
This is one where you have players who really don't have a say in it, as we'll get to in the next segment. But Vince, your thoughts on the decision to roll ahead with this in terms of does the SEC specifically know what the heck they're doing, or is this just kind of a?
Well, they know what they're doing, that they're putting everybody at risk for the money, but it is it's a give and take. There's different variances of it, but yeah, absolutely, this is for money, and I think they realize that. I don't think they're just throwing darts at a dartboard with blinders on, moving the mask from your mouth to your eyes and just throwing darts. They realize, and they communicated enough with the medical people and understanding of here's the risk versus how we can execute it. So I don't think it's blindly doing it, but anywhere you go, even if there are tests that are being done, some gyms they do a temperature test when you go in there. And so that's another example that anyone that it's getting back out, there's some form of risk to it.
You were going to say?
No, I
Okay.
just,
Well, well, I guess one way it's kind of a guesswork, and I think this is pure guesswork. You're going to have different schools that have already come out and said, all right, we're going to have a limited number of players who can get together and work out, limited number of coaches who can be in the office if the space is this big. All right, let's say at Tennessee that's 10, and at Louisville it's 12.
depends on how big your room is.
Well, I mean, that's what who knows? I just think that part of it is sort of, let's just see what happens. I don't think the players are as great a risk as anybody else. Everyone knows that the older you are, or if you have underlying medical conditions, the more risk you have. That said, the concern for me is with getting all these people back. Several coaching staffs are back already in their offices. UT has not been. Philip Fulmer has kept their guys out of there. Now they're coming back. The concern for me would be support staff, coaches, especially older members of the administration. Those are people that we're typically thinking of, well, you bring all these people back, the kids will be fine. Okay? There are some people over there who aren't kids.
And there's some kids who have pre-existing conditions.
There are those random cases that we've seen where this guy doesn't fit the profile.
Yeah.
This is a young guy who shouldn't have been affected by it, but he was. But the nightmare scenario for me is we talk about what happens if somebody tests positive. You quarantine them and you move forward. What happens if somebody gets seriously ill at one of these schools? How does it impact that school, and does that send out the shockwaves across the country to other schools and other leagues?
I think it just depends on what happened with that individual. I know there was a UFC fighter in their first event that they got a positive test the morning of the show. Well, they felt like he didn't have exposure to other athletes, so they removed him from the team hotel, and they continued on with the show, and nothing really happened, or there weren't any other positive tests that came back after that, kind of connecting the dots. So that one worked out for them seemingly. So I think it will depend on who they were exposed to, what the situation was. Did they not follow protocol when that happened? Then they're going to come under greater scrutiny. Then that'll start the ball rolling more as to taking more extreme measures. And one of the things that was pointed out in those releases for the SEC was that, hey, in some cases, it is actually a better situation for those student athletes back on campus where they do have more resources to be able to stay healthy and sanitary environment, things like that, versus you don't know if they're getting together with a group of people on their own, they may not be able to take those more proper measures.
Okay. Tell you what, we got to catch a break. When we come back, we'll talk about what the players said. The Athletic did a poll this week. Some interesting responses from them regarding this whole thing and whether or not they would want to play in empty stadiums if that was part of it. Come on back, we'll tell you all about that, and then a lot more UT football, actual football to talk about. Come on back.